Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beautiful Bones podcast. This is episode 1. I am your co host, Trevor, and joining me as our other co host is Jackie.
Hello.
And, Jackie, what case are we going to be discussing today?
Today we are going to be discussing a 1991 kidnapping of Carrie Lawson. And her body has never been recovered, although there was a ransom exchange.
Okay. Well, why don't you just run us down the timeline of events from start to finish?
Okay. All right. I will give you that. On September 11th of 1991, Carrie and Earl Lawson were at their home in Walker County, Alabama, and it was the middle of the night, and they get a phone call from someone that said Big Earl, which was Earl's dad, was gravely ill in the hospital, and they needed to get dressed and come on to the hospital immediately, which they did. When they got to outside to their car, there was a gunman waiting on them, and he had Carrie use duct tape and tie up her husband, and then he absconded with Carrie in her own car and took off.
Hold on. What does absconded mean?
Well, I might not even be using that properly, but it means just basically disappears with, takes.
Okay.
Takes. Yeah. So then basically they get a ransom call demanding $300,000 for her return.
Wait, so they walked out to the car, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
The gunman was standing there, and he took the wife and just left in their car or his car, or how did that exchange go down?
It is my understanding that it was her car. But it was either her or his. He had to have been dropped off because, and that's something people find kind of strange, because he didn't know how much gas she had in the car, or if somebody would recognize, somebody else driving around with her.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, the ransom demand was made for $300,000. They gathered it up, but they wanted proof of life, and so there was a phone call in which Carrie was saying, and this was the next day, it was the next day, I believe, and but whenever the call was made, they demanded. She said that basically she was very scared, and that these people weren't playing around, and that there was a lot more people behind it than what it looked like. And
do you think that was actually her, or do you think it was recorded, like a pre-recorded from the first day that they had her? Or do you think she was alive and well by this point?
Okay, I can tell you for sure that she was alive and well, and the reason I can tell you that, the timeline is a little sketchy, as far as exactly when each thing happened, but they found blood from her, and it wasn't injury blood, it was that time of the month blood. Yeah, so they know that she was alive, and I don't know where they found that, but they found it because I know they rented hotel rooms to keep her and things like that, so I believe it was in a hotel room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright,
okay.
So the proof of life, they have it.
Okay, they had proof of life, and the crazy thing about that, but we won't get into it too much because it would be getting into a lot, but that was one of the first. So many mistakes happened on the part of the FBI and the police about this case, but the tape recorder, either they didn't push record or it malfunctioned, but they did not get her voice on tape, so they have no record of that.
That's great.
But yeah, that's great. They have no record of that. Um, so basically, they were going to do a drop of the money.
How much money did
And
they want?
they asked for $300,000.
$300,000 doesn't seem that
Yeah.
much for 1991.
Yeah. Um, well, Carrie was just out of law school, although both of their families were were wealthy. Um, and Earl was an attorney in a law firm there, and Carrie had just graduated the University of Alabama Law School,
Roll
and she
Tide.
didn't know it. Yeah, she didn't know it yet, but she had passed the bar exam, and it crossed her kidnapping in the mail.
Oh,
Like
wow.
the letter came during all that, so she never knew she passed the bar. But yeah,
Hmm.
so anyway, um,
So,
then
yeah.
they basically put out the kidnapper's voice. They put it out on radio
Wait,
stations and
wait,
stuff.
how did they get the kidnapper's voice? They forgot to record, right? That's what you were saying?
Um, the proof of life part. They got him when he first called, and they demanded proof of life.
Uh-huh.
And then she called. So
Okay.
they had him on tape, and a lot of people called in saying that it was a man named Jerry Bland, um, which it was. Apparently, and
Well, if it was him, I guess he's arrested, right? Case closed.
no, 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 no. We'll get to that, but no, he wasn't. So what they did is get a search warrant for his house, and they did find 300,000. No, they found $240,000 in cash. It's disputed whether it was that day or at a later date, days later, which we'll get to that. But they also found a whole bunch of guns and everything, and a lot of people have complained that why did they not take the guns out of the house? And I just don't think that the search warrant probably didn't cover that. That's probably not what they were really looking for. Although maybe they should have been looking for that, because I'm sure Earl had a description of the gun, that was used. So at this point, you have someone that made a call in the middle of the night, and then now you have Jerry Bland as a suspect.
Well,
So they
who?
surround.
One second. Who called the people in the middle of the night and told them that there was a family emergency?
Well, at that point, they didn't know, but it turned out to be um, someone really close to Jerry Bland. Some people say it's his cousin, but they're related by marriage, is what I believe. And what was your question? I forgot.
Well, it's just interesting that they get a call from some stranger they don't know that a family member's in the hospital, and their first thought is,
Exactly, and then that
and then their
happens.
well their first
Right.
their first thought is, hey, let's immediately go out. Like, I don't know who this person is, right? So why would I immediately act on their actions? I'm calling the hospital probably first.
I would too, but it seems like 91 was a long time ago, but then again, everything really did change in 2001 for 9/11. I think everybody policies got stricter, and everybody got hyper vigilant
Well, you said
about.
this was 91, correct?
Yeah,
So this was pre 9/11.
right. It was pre 9/11, so I think you would have a tendency probably to just assume. Um, I don't know if I would, because I'm skeptical,
Yeah. Well,
but
we can't say what we would do in this situation until we're faced with it anyway. But um, right. So they got the call. They went to they tried to go to the hospital. The
yeah.
wife got kidnapped, so they got the proof of life from the ransom call, and then
Mm-hmm.
they. So I guess we're at the ransom switch right now. So what happened with the money drop?
Well, it's my understanding that they had the money in a black duffel bag, and it was GPSed, and then Earl's car was also GPSed. So apparently, the police there was some confusion, and it didn't get picked up, and so then they attempted it again the next night, and so everything looks like it's on course, and everything's going to be okay, and maybe we're going to actually get Carrie back here any minute now. But what happened is, when the guy left with the GPS money, and we'll get in, I can get into later, I'll get into more detail about what happened with the first one, unless you want me to tell you about that now.
No, we can go ahead with it now. The first drop, right? That's what you're referring to?
Right. The first drop. And it was, for some reason, it was in Coleman, Alabama, at a little place. Yeah. And I have no idea why they went there, but that's where it was. And unbeknownst to the police there, they just so happened to be on the scene for an unrelated event, which spooked the kidnappers. So that was a whole nightmare.
Was the unrelated event?
I'm not really sure. It was very minor. I know that it wasn't a big deal. It was just something like, maybe a theft at the store or something like that.
Okay.
It wasn't very noteworthy. It was just an event.
Yeah.
But then when they attempt to make the second drop, and he does make the drop, and he gets out of there, and they have a helicopter in the sky. They have teams everywhere. They have the FBI waiting. They have pulled in the Birmingham Police Department, the ABI. ABI is the Alabama Bureau of Investigations, of course. But I said Walker County. I don't reckon I ever said Alabama, but that's where it's at.
Yeah. All of this takes place in Alabama.
Huh?
All of this takes place in Alabama, to my knowledge, right?
It all does, yes. Yeah. So the money's going in one direction on the GPS, and Earl's headed in another direction in his car, also GPS. But somehow they got put on the same frequency, and the helicopter did not follow the ransom bag. They followed Earl all the way back to wherever he went. So then they've pretty well are convinced about Jerry, and in the meantime, they've
how do they get onto Jerry? Just from the anonymous phone call in that?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Oh my gosh, that's really, yes, that was a big part of it. But also they found out at a dumpster at an apartment place, somebody found a tape, and they played it. And when they played it, and it might have happened, after the ransom exchange, but when they played it, it's basically Jerry Bland talking to Karen McPherson about the girl who made the phone call and is in jail for that now to this very day, about a kidnapping that went wrong the week before, and it was going to be a bigger person, but they decided to go with somebody smaller. And so that's always been really suspect, where did that come from? But
well, do we know anything about this other kidnapping?
No, nobody's ever known. But to be honest, Carrie Lawson's husband, Earl, worked in a law firm with a very prominent attorney, Garv Ivy, who has had his ups and downs with the law. He has had his law license revoked twice. Once was for reportedly interfering in a campaign in a local election by... we won't even get into that here, but but he's very prominent, and I suspect it might have been him because Earl Lawson worked in that law firm.
Right.
So in my mind, I wonder if it would have been him or his wife. That's kind of what I think, just knowing all the major players.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
So they
Okay.
followed Earl home, and
Mhm.
when they followed him home,
Well, wherever he went.
yeah.
Yeah, he probably went back to the command station or something.
So nobody was like, oh. So I guess when they got back, they were like, oh, we got the wrong guy. So then what happened next?
Well, they just had to. They're actually in a book about the FBI's biggest screw ups, and this is one of them in that book. But they just had to realize that they had lost that opportunity. And so they had to focus in on Jerry Bland. So they surrounded his house and stayed there. Um, they they let his wife come into the house and leave uh, several times. And then one time she brought in a brown grocery bag, and that who knows what was in the bag. But reportedly, at some point, he just asked them to leave, and they did leave. Um, and and he shot himself and killed himself.
Earl did?
Yeah, no,
Oh, Jerry
no, I'm
did.
sorry. Jerry did. Jerry did.
Oh, interesting. So
Yeah.
did they end up
Me.
searching his place after his death or anything like that?
Yeah, but there are numerous people. I mean, you got to understand about Walker County, and I know you know a little bit about it. But
Well, for
Walker
the audience,
County,
yeah.
yeah, Walker County is known very well as the Wild Wild West of Alabama. Probably the only other comparable county would be Winston County, and it borders that county. But there was a special, like a 60-minute show or something like that years ago that featured Walker County as the best place to hire a hitman. Somebody hired a hitman in Walker County for a carton of Marlboros. And then, not too many years back, I'm talking maybe 4, somebody got on their riding lawnmower to crank it, and it was a man, and he cranked it, and it blew up. It had a bomb under his riding lawnmower, and that was determined to be a hit. So Walker County,
That's like a redneck mafia hit if I've ever heard of one.
well, actually, there is something. It's called the Dixie Mafia. Um, it goes by numerous names, but there is a redneck mafia. I guess you could call it redneck mafia. There is a network, or definitely was, and still kind of is, but there definitely was a well concerted group that wasn't just limited to Alabama. Yeah. So anyway, they did go inside and search the place, and they did find two. It's my understanding they found $240,000 of the ransom money, and they found $10,000 in Carrie McPherson's house. So
Okay.
I'm not sure where the 50,000
Yeah.
went. You have to wonder about that. Like, how could that much money already be gone?
Yeah, and how long over a period is this? Is this like a month or a couple months? How long are we into this situation?
Well, at this point in time, um, we're really only into it about probably a week to 10 days.
So all this happened real fast.
It happened really fast, yeah, and then it just became an investigation to
Gotcha.
try to determine what happened and find her, because they had hoped that she would still be alive. But
Yeah.
after time goes by, the likelihood is
Low.
very low. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So they searched the place. Did they find anything?
Um, well, they found the money, but and then he did leave a note.
But they
The
didn't
note
find
has
all
never.
the money, right?
They no, they
They're missing
no
fifty
like
thousand dollars.
that's yes. It's never been. published. I don't believe it's ever been published, the amount, but because I'm from Birmingham and, know some of the people, like, that's the amount that I've heard that was found was $240,000, and I feel pretty confident in saying that was the exact amount. It was in his attic, and like I said, he left a note. But back to those tapes. I want to go back to those tapes for just a minute.
Okay.
That were found at the apartment complex. The way they explained that is they said that Jerry Bland's wife thought that he was cheating on her, and so she had tapped their line, and that she gave those tapes to a friend of hers to hold, and that the friend just eventually threw them away. I don't know. I have no independent, source on that to know for sure if that's true or not.
Right.
But it sounds likely, or it sounds possible.
Yeah, it's plausible.
Yeah, it sounds possible.
Yeah.
So, they end up arresting Karen, and the dad said that if she would sit down with him and, tell him what happened and where his daughter was, that he would not oppose parole in 10 years. And so they did sit down for like all day long, and then, but she didn't know where the body was. But she told him everything else, and that Jerry Bland was having money problems, and he really needed money. He lived kind of an upper class lifestyle and needed a lot of money. And basically, the next day, she called and said, or her attorney called the family's attorney and said that she lied about everything that she said, and the deal was off. Now, I mean, how suspect is that?
Yeah.
Jerry's gone. Who is she afraid of? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean. That's maybe the redneck mob is after.
I have had people tell me when I said I was going to cover this case, it's been nice knowing you, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I really fully believe there's more to this story. I just don't really know what direction exactly it's in, or who was working with them, or why maybe they just kind of covered things up because they messed it up so bad,
Right. Right. So you're saying you're not sure who got to Karen, right? So somebody had to get to Karen to make her flip her stance. So if it wasn't her husband, because he's dead at this point, who was it?
Well, Karen's husband was not Jerry Bland.
Oh.
That was her cousin, or just related by marriage.
Okay.
But whoever got to her, I don't know. Karen was a truck driver, and her husband was a truck driver, and I don't even know why that's relevant, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. But
more detail is better always.
Okay. But it makes you wonder whose time she's doing. And I don't know if somebody got to her, or did she just get to thinking about it and get scared. I'm not sure which it would be. But I can tell you Jerry Bland was a strip pit. Well, he worked for Drum and Coal and in the strip pits, and if you Google them, they've been in a lot of trouble in Alabama and down in Central America with mining. They've done some real shady things and might even be caught up in some type of mafia type actions. Yeah, it's a lot of that. But so he worked for them for a long time, and then he started his own mining company. And so he operated this piece of equipment that is gigantic. I can't recall what they call it, but
Can you
he was one
recall
of the
what it
few.
does?
Yeah, it just scrapes the land. It just scrapes and scrapes and scrapes, down. And and basically, he was one of the few people that could operate that large of a piece of equipment. I mean, it's huge. I've seen one before. I wish I could remember the name of it, um, but what I've heard and what is out there is that she was basically, because he could use dynamite, he could do whatever, that there was a wall and that he put her there and then dynamited it and it got covered over, and then they just continued their work and didn't know any better.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah.
So do you think Carrie Lawson may be buried somewhere at one of these mines that he ran?
I'm going to tell you something really crazy that I didn't plan on telling you at this. I think it's a very, very strong possibility, but I know of like three people that all agree to this. Well, they agree to the basic facts of this story. Um, Here in Birmingham, another large company was on strike, and there were people breaking the strike lines, and they don't like it when you do that. So
Right.
they had to have a security company come in and protect the line, and make sure that the workers could get into work that wanted to work.
Right.
Well, they were watching also watching one of the executives' houses to keep him safe, and one of the agents um, called and reported into the main supervisor that somebody drove by in a truck and threw out an object, and when they went and got it, it was a wallet, and it had all of Carrie's information in it and dried blood on the back, like the outside of the wallet.
Hmm.
And it was a man's wallet, but it had her information in it. And
Did she? Do you know if she carried a man's wallet by chance? Because I've heard of some people, some women doing that for sure.
well, that's a good question, but no, no. And you have to wonder if she would have her purse. You have to wonder if he even allowed her to carry her purse.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so once it was brought to the attention of the authorities, they just kind of became indignant about the whole situation. They did reportedly go to this truck driver's house. I do not know his name. I have it, but I wouldn't say it because he hasn't.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to
Yeah,
dox anybody.
yeah, exactly. And but you never hear about that. So I don't know why that would not have been released, or maybe it just stayed part of the investigation, because it's never been solved, so it's probably still quote unquote open, but really
Right.
gone cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the entire timeline we have so far is they get a call from somebody random that was supposedly his cousin. What's his name? Jason Jacob?
Jerry
Jerry
Bland's
Bland's
cousin.
cousin
Yeah.
made the call, got them out of the house, where they took their daughter at gunpoint, right? Uh,
No,
or is it his wife?
it's yeah, it's the okay. To make it clear, the major players that you have is Carrie Lawson, married to Earl Lawson.
Ah,
Carrie was kidnapped. Then you've got Big Earl, of course, who is Earl Lawson's dad. He owns an auto parts store in Jasper to this day. And or unless he's passed away and I don't know about it. But then you've got Jerry Bland. He's the kidnapper. Then you got Karen McPherson, and she was just declined parole again about 2 or 3 months back, maybe 6 months back. She was just declined parole again. And if she would only speak or would have spoken, I mean, I feel like, gosh, why is she staying silent all this time? But she will not talk to anybody. But then
Have you tried to write to her?
No, but I'm gonna.
There's a service that you can use without them knowing your real address, so you don't have to send it directly to them. I'll tell you about it after the show. But
okay. Yeah.
So the timeline of events we have thus far is Carrie Lawson gets kidnapped under false pretenses from the cousin, and they make the exchange. But the helicopter does not follow Jerry; it follows the wrong person. Then you cut forward to Jerry offs himself, and they are missing $50,000.
Right.
And unfortunately, we're running short on time today, but you did have something that you wanted to say that might be a teaser for the part 2 coming up.
This story could actually be part 10. There's so many things to it, but I will say that in the circles of people that talk about it, whether they're in law enforcement, out of law enforcement, whether they were peripherally, involved in it, or whether they're just people that knew about it, many people believe that he was allowed too much freedom for sure. Why wasn't he taken into custody and, at least questioned more?
Right.
But there are many people that believe that he didn't kill himself, and that say that the back of the house was not guarded, that the police were only on the front. So that a lot of people are skeptical about this for many reasons, and that's just one.
Gotcha.
That I think is a pretty big deal.
All right. Well,
yeah.
That's wrapping up for part 1 of the disappearance of Carrie Lawson. We're going to be coming back to this probably next week for you guys out there, and we'll be hitting you with maybe a much longer part. We'll see. We're not sure.
Yeah.
And we might possibly throw in a guest or two that's related to the case. We'll see. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for everyone who took the time out of your day to listen to this. This has been the Beautiful Bones Podcast. I'm Trevor. And this is
I'm Jackie.
Yeah. And we'll talk to you next time.